We are talking about money, strangely enough, the psychology of money. Interesting topic. What are the emotions that you see people have around money, and where do you think that comes from?
So I think it can evoke real extremes of emotion. When things and when people work out that they've got into the right situation, they can retire or hit big life events, it can evoke massive excitement and enjoyment, really. But before you get to that stage, I think there's a huge element of unknown, which can often lead to some people experiencing quite a lot of fear. And a lot of that is just simply not knowing where to look for certain bits of information, or who to even speak to and confide in sometimes.
What do you think drives? Do you feel that people have more fear around money or more worry about money now than perhaps in the past?
I think it's always been there. I think a lot of our fear over money comes from our mum and dad as well. We tend to relate money back to how our parents perhaps dealt with it. I know we've covered that in a previous session that we did.
I remember that you said if you, and I'll repeat it for the listeners because we may not have the same listeners, but it was an interesting point. It stayed with me. If you raise children and you have anxiety around money, you are teaching them to be anxious around money as well. Right. Which is, so they
from a
repeat
really
your
young
patterns.
age. I think some studies have even shown that from sort of 6 and 7, people and children are picking up those fears and concerns, which I can't remember what I was doing at 6 or 7, let alone anything else. So no, it's a really big topic, and the more information that comes out, the more this conversation needs to be at the forefront of families and groups and social groups, really, their sort of conversations.
I think there's always been a fear in and around money and how we manage our money, because the repercussions of making mistakes can impact on very basic needs that we need as families and human beings. It's just they change with different societal pressures. So at the moment, during a period of COVID and downturn, a lot of anxiety is in and around what are my emergency funds, and if I didn't have a job, would I be able to still pay for the mortgage? Or if I didn't have a job and I got ill, what insurance policies have I got to pay my bills? So the fear is always there. It just adapts and molds and changes to what's going on in the economy or in society as a whole.
And also the social media aspect of it, comparing yourself to other people. We talked a little bit in the narcissistic epidemic, and we talked about comparing yourself to other people and feeling the need to have that bigger house, that prettier dress, or that Botox, or whatever you're feeling like you need to feel special. Does that drive people to overspend?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of research that's been done about social media networks and how it impacts on what people buy. So quite often, if you see something on a social media site, somebody like an influencer talking about a watch that they've got that they really like, or some skin products, or maybe investing in Bitcoin, and how that product had an impact on their success or an impact on improving their skin, whatever anxiety you've got about yourself, you then feel psychologically unsafe, and that if you didn't purchase that product, that it was going to impact on the things that motivates you and drives you. So you then go out and you buy it, and a lot of advertising and marketing companies are using social influencers to drive this psychological phenomenon that's happening. And I do marketing myself, and I'm in financial services, and every now and then I get tricked, and I find myself clicking a link and going onto the website, and then I'm like, no, don't do it.
Refund, 14-day refund.
Yeah, don't buy those cycling sunglasses that you don't actually need, because you can wear normal sunglasses.
Yeah.
And you've just seen a picture of some incredibly beautiful woman that's on a mountain bike with these glasses on, and you think, I've got to have them to stop stones going in my eyes and whatever. And there's a lot of theory behind it, and I think what's important is not to fight it, but to note when it happens, so that you say, okay, I'm doing that, I'm following these advertising breadcrumbs. Do I actually need to spend my money on that, because I could be spending my money on something that would provide better value to me?
My biggest slap on the head was after I bought, and I love Apple products. Okay, I'm not here to, but I have 2 devices. I have an iPhone and a MacBook, and to me that's enough. But then I started following a coach who teaches using an iPad, and then that kind of projects into the screen, and I thought, ooh, that is so cool. I need an iPad. So I bought an iPad. And I've had iPads before, which I never used, but did I remember that story? No, of course not. I need an iPad. So I bought an iPad, and then one of the Instagram ads that I saw, and I think this was the universe playing a joke on me, was a little plastic stand where you can take your iPhone and tilt it down, and you can write on a piece of old-fashioned paper with colorful markers if you need to change color, and then you just have this plastic 16-pound stand that just puts your iPhone down and records camera, and then you can project that. Yeah. And I just said, well, that was funny. I get it. Yeah.
But our phones, listen to our lives. They hear us talking, and they listen to what we're talking about. And then, adverts come up for things that you've been speaking about. So we live in a really challenging world where we're always pressured to buy things all the time.
Yeah.
And that has a long-term effect on savings and our objectives and where we want to go.
But I'm reading your email on my iPad just because I want to use it.
And my question to you is, has your life changed since you got your iPad?
It has. I'm a little bit short now. I'm a couple of grand short just because of this. But no regrets. I love my iPad. Okay, great.
You covered that off now.
I've covered that off. But yeah, lots of different things. Let's talk more about this whole psychology of money and how do we develop healthier mental habits around money. Oh, what I did want to say, just to close off the segment about influencers, just in case you feel that influencer actually bought that nice, pretty watch, no, because those watches and clothes were given to these influencers to wear, so they didn't spend a penny buying those. Okay, and we shouldn't either. Very good. We'll be back after this. Give me fried chicken. I watched a commercial with fried chicken yesterday. I really wanted fried chicken. I just wanted to tell you that.
I haven't had any lunch yet, so that's definitely maybe one fried chicken.
I had a moment where I was like, has she remembered she's live? And then the mic's on. And then I realised that it was.
Listen, you like my segues. That's what I do.
I'm kind of thinking about chicken now as well.
Yeah. What were we talking about?
Yeah, money
right.
to buy fried chicken.
That's it.
Well, we talked about FOMO. We talked about fear of missing out, feeling like you got to follow the trend and overspending. I mean, it's all about being honest with what you actually have, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's such an important factor in everyone's life, whether you're on the spectrum and you've got arguably too little, the right amount, too much, and it affects us all in a very different way, and certainly our families, but it's almost like our health sometimes. Finance is secondary to health, don't get me wrong, but when something that important in our lives you think might not be on the right track or going downhill slightly, we've always had a tendency as humans to bury our heads in the sand. And it's the same analogy of people not going and seeing a doctor until it's too late. It's a very similar sort of analogy to use really when we're talking about finances, and those that you meet for the first time who are potential clients or new people that come in and they are really fearful, it's because they know deep down that they've left things too late. And that's not a problem, because there's always an option, there's always a solution, no matter what part of that spectrum you belong to. But it's making sure that you have that moment of realization of, right, I do need to go and get help. And now that could be anything from going and speaking to a family member, I've got this for my mortgage, I don't think this is right, have you had this experience before? And it might be that friends and family are able to help you out. But if they're not able to, then it's then about going and finding some professional help, whether that's through financial planners or, a business consultant, an accountant, whoever it may be, whatever their remit might need. Then it's just about going down and making sure that you're getting that right help and not burying your head in the sand.
Well, I think people handle fear about money in different ways. It's interesting. I've seen people overspend when they're stressed about money. So I don't have enough money, but I'm going to spend over my budget. It's stressful spending, right? It's like, fine, I don't have enough, but I'm going to spend as if by spending I'm going to have more. That's also, it's like denial, right? Secondly, I've seen people go uber frugal, like they won't even buy a meal. It's like unnecessarily going into that other extreme. Or some people just don't want to talk about it. Right? I mean, I think that's all the reaction to fear.
And this all stems from the fact that people don't sit down and look at the facts. We're just relying on things that we tell ourselves in our head that we don't always rationalise. And the biggest problem that we find when clients first get in touch with us is they say, I'm really nervous about my situation and what the outcome could be. Unlike health, the good news is most financial problems that you're worried about are solvable, no matter how big they are. So you should always remember, whatever I'm worrying about can be fixed. There's really big fears like, I'm not going to have enough to retire on because I haven't done anything about it. I'm 50 years old, haven't put any money into a pension. I'm just going to bury my head in the sand and cross that bridge when I really need to sort it out. And the problem is that what most people realise when they do come and see us, it's not as bad as what they made it up to be in their heads. And if they had actually started the 10 years when they first started thinking about it 10 years ago, they would have been in a better situation than they were currently.
But what is it that they don't know? Because sometimes when we don't know things, we play it up in our heads and it becomes this big monster of a problem, right? When you actually work with actual clients and individual, what is it that actually they don't know that it's actually not a big problem? Like you said, even if you're 50 and you haven't planned for it, it's actually solvable. It's not that big of a deal. What knowledge do they need to know?
Well, quite simply, they haven't plotted out their journey. So they haven't looked at, they don't even know what their existing wealth is and what their current position is. They've got an idea in their head, but they don't physically know. So it's having a look at that. They don't know where they want to go and what they want to have, and they don't know how they're going to get there. And it's that old concept of you don't know what you don't know. So you have to have someone in front of you to ask you the right questions that can provide answers to some of these things. And it's quite simply plotting it out and having someone to go, this is where you are now, this is where you are going to be if you continue on the same track, but if you go on this track, alternatively, this is where you could be. And it's as simple as that.
And it's also helping them figure out different tracks. Maybe all they know is that one track. It's almost like, that whole discussion, well, I'm 50 already. I'm not, but let's just say, right? But let's just say I'm 50 already, and in my head, that's too late to make money because money takes time, right? It's that whole thing about relationship with, I don't have enough time anymore to get wealthy. It's too late for me, and then depression. Is it true that time and money is like a direct correlation? Is that true?
Well, it is, yeah. I think there's, to a certain extent, if you look at sort of pure investment theory, the earlier and the sooner you can get money in, the longer then it's going to have those abilities to go through those investment cycles. That's very basic investment theory. But it's the same analogy of, okay, well, if I think it's too late, but then I never start, then all you're doing is making it later and later and later. So what we often see is that people sometimes will delay things even further because in their mind it's too late, when actually you're just making the situation a bit worse, really. It might just mean, and sometimes they're difficult conversations, but it might just mean that you have to delay your plans to do things until a later point. So whereas you might want to retire for 50 now, you might want to retire at 62, 63, you might have to delay that by a couple of years or phase into retirement. There's so many different ways now in which retirement looks like for people. Some people want to completely cut work out and go cold turkey and fall straight into full retirement. A lot of people nowadays, they want to drop hours, the ability to go, right, okay, I'm going to go down to 3 or 4 days a week. And so it might just mean that sort of middle bridging ground happens in your circumstance. And you're absolutely right. It's about making sure that all those different options and routes, no one has a crystal ball. And anyone that says that they do run a mile. But it's about making sure that they understand there's lots of different routes that you can go down. It's just understanding what each one means. And the
older we get, the more we traditionally we earn. So if we're earning more in our 50s, all the difference is it's not about time, it's about, you've got to put more in. So you've got to put more in between 50 and 60 or whatever your retirement age you've picked to actually make up what you need. And quite often people don't realise that they've got pension pots all over the place that can be amalgamated. We had one lady come in a couple of months ago and the advisor sat down with her and made her realise she could retire in 7 years' time. And she thought it was never going to be possible, and she literally burst into tears in the meeting. So it's about, just have the conversation, just start it today, start looking at it no matter how worried you are, and it's never going to be as bad in reality as what you've made it up to be in your head.
Yeah. And also defining what retirement means to you, like what you said, Greg. It's just a matter of for some people, like I can't imagine not working. I mean, that's not my, going to Santorini and sipping pina coladas all my life is not my. I'd be bored and moody, But I think some people just say, yeah, I just want to drop hours. Or maybe some people's definition of retirement is living in a house that I want to live in instead of the one I have to live in. Or owning that one special property outside of my regular property, maybe owning another home for summer or something. But if you're, I think if you have a general definition of retirement, it's not specific to you. You might be putting other people's definition. Oh, I
That's
need a
correct.
yacht. I need a super
Yeah.
yacht. I need,
Yeah.
but that's not what you want ultimately.
No, and it's having someone sit down and go, what do you want? And sometimes, you know, one of the clients I can remember recently wanted one of those motorhome caravan things, and then a smaller house in a city, like a flat or something. Okay, so let's see the value of your current property versus the mortgage that you have and what equity you've got in it. So talk through the motions and created a scenario of what they could achieve. Because they sold their property and because of the value of the apartment and the motorhome was much less, they then had a lot of money to then put into additional investment vehicles, which would provide an income over time. So
Yeah.
you're right. You've got to sit down and you've got to know what questions to ask yourself. And there's lots of resources on the money advice service and pension wise that you can get you started. But then, of course, if you decide that you haven't got the time to stick to the plan that you've set, then you can start to think, okay, do I want to outsource what I'm doing by having a financial advisor?
Yeah, and the biggest discovery for me is also I realized I don't like big homes because I grew up in one and I had to do all the vacuuming, and it was just hell, you know.
But what's the pressure in society to achieve?
But when you see these home shows, for
Yeah.
instance, the ideal home is always so big, and I realized, and it was comforting for me because, you know, I'm thinking, well, no, my idea of retirement is in a cottage, you know, where it's pretty, it's quaint, but it's small. I like small but being part of country and everything. And actually, if you look at it, it's actually not a lot of money that you need for that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're not well defined in what you want, you're kind of being brought along by other people's definition, you stress yourself out. Well, you've got a lot of tools in your website. I was looking at articles and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about, let's say if we wanted some free resources and everything, what can we find in your website?
Yeah, there's a lot of free resources. I normally put an article up on our website every week or every other week, and it tends to be related to something that's going on at that time. So the most recent one was, it's the summer holidays. It could be easy to put the flip-flops on in our staycation environment and sort of not think about anything serious and just have a bit of fun. But, you know, we give tips on, okay, it is the summer, how can you plan and sit down and look at things in this time when you're off work. We have free financial guides that people can read, that we don't ask for your contact details. It's all there, readily available. We've got these interviews that we put up on our website so everyone can access all of the interviews that we've done with yourself. So there's a lot of free resource, and if someone wanted to do their finances on their own, there would be enough there to start the process if that's what they wanted.
Cool. Did you come up with a booklet of questions yet?
I'm working on it.
Oh,
I'm
that's so
speaking to someone
cool.
about it. Yeah. So Cynthia had an idea. I mean, we'll have to credit her, I reckon.
Yeah,
Do a little cheeky link to her site.
It comes out of a group effort.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll
But
take the
we're
credit.
working on it. We're working on, you know, some top questions that you could be asking yourself, because that's what it's all about when we start that fact-finding process.
Nice. Well, I want to get back to you and talking more about the psychology of money and how then, what are the healthy mental habits we can develop as we plan our retirement, or if we just want to have a better general feeling about money. We'll be back with Unividual with Sherry Ann Baxter and Greg Harris after this.
Made locally in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
We're still with Brave Business Conversation, and in the studio we've got Unividual, your chartered financial planner.
Oh, God.
I like to be as cheesy as possible.
Yeah.
We talked about, you know, developing better mental habits, and I mean the obvious thing is if you're overspending, save. You know, but what do you think prevents people from saving?
Well, there's quite a lot of theory behind this, and without getting too dry and technical, we have a bigger fear of losing money than we do relatively to the savings that we could potentially make. So a good example is if we had £20 in our pocket and we were walking through town and we lost that £20, we'd probably be more distraught about losing that 20 quid or however it may be relatively than if we were to go online to a comparison site and save 100, 150, 200 quid on our car insurance each year. And you know, there's a lot of science and data to go behind that. So when people struggle with trying to sort of find the time and drive to make those savings and to go and spend a day on those comparison sites and get everything done that you need to do, actually don't view it as saving, view it as, if I don't do these actions, actually I'm losing money. Because that, you know, and it's relative to different people, you know, that it might be £100 for one person, or it could be a couple of £1,000 to others. You know, it's all about making sure that we understand that if you can't save properly, it's probably because the sort of the mental framing that you have around saving versus losing out money isn't quite aligned.
I'm one of these people. I'm terrible. Like, we've just moved into a house and we're with British Gas I can't even say that.
Yes.
British Gas for our electricity, and I'm just rolling with it. I haven't done any comparisons or organised anything. So what I decided I was going to do was put a date in the diary every quarter where I sit down just for a few hours one weekend and just do some finance stuff. Look at different comparisons, trying to save things. You know, oh, my partner's with Spotify, but then I've got Apple Music where you can both
Why do you
use
double
it.
up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, things like that. So I think if people can just say, right, even if it's once a year, I'm going to do a few hours once a year in maybe at the start of the new year, January, where you look at all these bits, it just means that you can actually prevent yourself from losing money. And if you had a pot with all of that money in that you'd saved / didn't lose, what could you buy with it? Could you treat yourself to something, or could it go towards increasing your savings?
That's interesting. Is that people are just, I don't have time to go to comparison sites.
Yeah.
But, you know, so here's a good thing, listeners, if you have a partner or someone that you want to motivate more to save, based on this new psychological theory I've just learned, steal some cash from their pocket. You know, just steal something. If it's a 20 quid, if you think if they went on a comparison site, they would save 20 quid. Just go to their wallet right now and just take 20 quid off. And then they're going to, have you seen my 20 quid? Have you seen it? And then you go, oh, just leave it for 24 hours. Let them panic and just say, look, here's the theory of, what is it called? What is the theory?
Hyperbolic discounting.
Hyperbolic discounting. You know, you could have saved 20 quid on your car insurance if you just spend one weekend. And that's every month.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
That's
just a
every
couple
month.
of times a year. And you can have this 20 quid back once you've actually found cheaper car insurance.
Or if not, you're going to continue having 20 quid off your wallet every month. Yeah. Actually, I have a personal context to that. I am going to try that. I'm going to steal 45 quid.
And if anyone from Avon and Somerset Police is listening, there's no intention to keep the money.
I'm counting on the fact my partner's not listening to my radio show right now, because I am going to steal 45
Although we are
quid
your
from his
favourites,
wallet.
so he might be
Yeah,
listening.
actually, I should have mentioned that this morning. He might actually be listening. Let me check my text messages after this. We'll be back with just a bit of a wrap up on this Psychology of Money session with Unividual after this. You can go your own way and plan your financials, but what is your way? You know, what is your way? Because the problem is, and here's my little gripe. I'm a business coach and everything, but it doesn't mean I understand all the little tricks and laws and everything and procedures about mortgage and finance and everything when it comes to my own money, So finding your own way to save and finding your own way to plan gets a bit overwhelming if you're just counting on online courses and online support. So how do you guys help out for these people who've just asked everyone around them and still are pretty much confused?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of information out there, and unfortunately a lot of it doesn't apply to each individual circumstances. So what we try and do is we offer a first free meeting, so people can sit down with us for an hour, 2 hours, however long it needs to be, get a real understanding of what is relevant to them, how we could potentially help them in that specific circumstances. And if we are able to, then we can look at next stage and we can go through all those different processes with the individual or family. Or if they need something a bit more guidance-based, we can show them where the information is, but at least they've got a good takeaway away from that meeting, whether they want to use us or not, which then goes, right, okay, here's where I need to go to find the information about my mortgage, pension, investments, or life cover. Or if not, then they can look at working with us longer term.
And people always think, oh, I'm not rich enough, I haven't got enough money to warrant having a financial advisor. It's not like that. We have people from all walks of life contact us, and you're never poor enough to need financial advice. So,
well, if you are poor enough, that's exactly why you need financial
advice.
advice.
That's why. Whilst we can't help with things on debt and stuff like that, in terms of what we do, there's a lot we can help people with.
Yeah. Well, I find, just off topic a little bit, but finding a financial advice for me is like you got to find people you trust.
Yeah.
So financial advisors that don't give free sessions, I really question, because how can you build that trust? Because sometimes, even if you did have the right resources, there's no chemistry between the person and the potential client.
Yeah.
Then
It's
that's
really
a no-go.
important. Yeah.
So I would encourage anyone who is a listener and is feeling a bit confused or overwhelmed about their financial future to try contacting a few financial advisors, perhaps including individual. Book yourself a free session. Get a feel of the person you're talking to. I can say the world out of these two people sitting in front of me, but you might not like them.
Not everyone.
No,
Not
but
everyone.
you know what, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, don't feel the pressure. But it's almost about it's kind of like finding a business coach as well. I always tell people like, we'll have a chemistry session, because lots of people can help. But who is the right person that you feel good about? You got to feel open about it. And if somebody can feel open about it and be even be vulnerable in front of someone, that would be really good.
One of the top reasons why people don't find the right financial advisor is because they say, I didn't find someone that worked with people like me. And you've got to find someone that, if you're a business owner that works with businesses, or if you're a single woman and you want someone that's not going to be male orientated business, you've got to find a company that represents who you are as a person.
Who do you typically serve? What kinds of profiles?
We've actually worked really hard to make sure we provide a lot of inclusivity. So when I first joined the business, we worked with a lot of males and a lot of male business owners. We now work with businesses, families, same-sex couples. We've got single women, single men. So we have different advisors that suit different types of people. So when a lead comes in, I am the first contact that the person has with the business, and I will work out who's going to be the right advisor for you to make sure that there is that chemistry.
Yeah, that's perfect. When I owned my own business coaching firm in Indonesia, we also had different kinds of coaches, because there's no one size fits all, and somebody will be more emphatic because they had a life journey that's the same, or somebody would be an expert in something because that's their background. You really can't deal with one type of people. But that's good. Any last advice about going back to that mental health and psychology of money?
Yeah, I think it's about just understanding, try and get as best as you can an idea of where you are now. Cut out the sort of the success culture that social media and everything brings about. Speak to family and friends, but don't use necessarily them as a benchmark. Just understand where you are now currently, and if you can't find the resources personally through family and friends or online, then go and speak to someone, whether it's us or someone else. Just go and speak to someone that you can then build a relationship with and trust and move forward with. And I think too few people unfortunately do that, but there's so much resource out there. Just find the right resource for you and your journey.
And if you're not sure who to trust for a financial advisor, look at Google reviews, go onto the Money Advice or Pension Wise service. That will list all of the advisors in your local area with their qualifications on. Look at the FCA register, get a referral off someone that has worked with another advisor.
Right. Never do it alone, I think, is the thing as well.
Definitely.
Don't feel like you have to do it alone. I personally have gotten a lot of good advice but also don't take advice from people who get commission out of their advice. I think that's the one thing when people ask me, how do I pick a financial advisor? It's like, do they get commission off the investment portfolios that you buy? And I say, yes. Well, okay, don't. Because it's like, that they've got an incentive to do it. And I think what my takeaway from this session is really, it's not too late, because if you are 55 or 60 or whatever, 60 is younger than 61. 61 is younger than 62. Definitely. You still have that. And somehow I feel that the financial tools are a lot more flexible and a lot more varied today. And if we grew up with a certain assumption that there's only one or two ways to achieve our goals, I think nowadays you probably can find 5 or 6 ways to achieve your goals. And your job as individual is to be updated about all these things and feed us back the information. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you.
It is. Thanks for having us back. It's been a good topic.
Yeah, and we'll be back next month.
Yes. Yeah.
Do we have a topic for next month?
We do. but I can't remember what it is that we're doing.
Well, it will remain a secret topic.
It will,
until,
and we will advertise it nearer the time.
Yeah.
But we've got a whole schedule
Yeah, we have.
of what we're going
We
to be
do,
doing.
we
Yeah.
do. It's always a pleasure. And it's always nice to have a financial component to this Brave Business conversation, because there's lots of business tips that people give. But for you specifically, when we talk about money, it's so important these days because people are so worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you still doing your stuff at schools and teaching
Yeah,
younger
we
kids?
are. Yeah, we're working very closely with Kingswood School, and we're hoping to go up to some places in half term to do a few bits with kids as well.
Good. Well, looking forward for our next show next month. Thank you for being here again, and all the best in what you do.
Thank
Thank you.
This is Radio Bath. Radio Bath.